glad you're with us on Conquering Retirement. Brad Johansson with Peter Hansen, Derek Hewitt, Northern Alliance Financial. Gentlemen, the pleasure is all mine.
Okay, well, it's good to be here.
It's great to be here again.
It's nice to be. Guys, you and I, all right, I'm going to set this up. We've broken bread together many times. I'm going to say Derek is a professional eater. He is strong on meals. Finishes everything that's in front of him, goes through it, figures out what he wants, knows how to do it, adds this here and there. Peter's looking at me like, where are you going with this? Because you go through it and you don't really have to worry about what you're going to finish. My question is, do you ever have to detox from all of the stuff that you go through on this?
Sure, absolutely.
Do you really?
Yeah. We had dinner last night, and yeah, I did eat quite a bit. It's the only time I usually do when we're together and we end up catching up, having dinner, and you know, my diet goes out the window.
Well, see, people always tell me that I have to detox. The older I get, that I'm supposed to try and figure out how to detox my body. I've never been disciplined enough to be able to do that and go through that 7-day or that 15-day thing. I lead us into that where people are going, what the heck are you talking about? Because I want to detax us. Instead of detoxing us, I want to detax us and go into this format of understanding why we even need to be worried about that in retirement, because many people will say, you know what, I've had an advisor for a long time, or I've had multiple advisors for the long time, and nobody ever talked to me about dealing with taxes in my retirement plan. Why is it that we don't have people talking about, you have to figure your taxes into this or the plan's not going to work, Derek?
Yeah, well, the reason why you may not have advisors that talk about it is because they may be afraid to, or they may not really know enough about it. They should, but it's kind of a slippery slope, because we're not CPAs, but we certainly have to understand tax implications within your retirement and your investments. And so we talk about detaxing. Most folks that come in to see us, I would say most folks that go in to see any advisor, especially as they're getting close to retirement, most of those assets are in that pre-tax chassis. So your 401k, 403b, and you know, you could have $1 million in your 401k, but you know as well as I know that once you take that money out and you pay your taxes, you may only end up with 700, 600, depending on where you are. So there's a lot of tax implications there. So why not take some of that money that is in that, pre-tax chassis and start to move it incrementally before you retire? So that way, you can detax your retirement a little bit.
The numbers are staggering. Look, our government is over $36 trillion in debt. Here's where they're going to go for that money, at least most people think, is that we right now have more than $38 trillion put away in tax-deferred accounts, which is where the government is going to go for that money. Is that the people aren't aware that they need to detax because this is the way we've been told to save?
Well, like Derek said, a lot of people aren't talking about it. Your 401k manager isn't going to talk to you about it. If you currently have an advisor who's more of a wealth collector rather than a wealth manager, they're probably not going to talk to you about it. Everybody has to remember, if you are gearing up for retirement and you're single, you have a partner who's going to share in your retirement. It's called the IRS. If you're a married couple and you think, well, it's only the two of us, nope, there's a third party there. It's called the IRS. They are entitled to us. If you have pre-tax dollars, they are entitled to a certain percent of your fortune that you've saved up.
Yeah.
And it could, depending upon how you manage your retirement, it depends upon how much they're going to get. You can't avoid taxes, that's illegal, but you can certainly mitigate the taxes. Now, what if you could pay off that business partner a little bit early? Say, I'm going to give you this much right now, but I don't want to ever hear from you again for this set of money. And then the business partner says, well, if I know you have the right to do it, okay, so I'll take that money now. Gosh, I was hoping for a big gain, when you turn 73,
Okay, if I throw those numbers out, you're saying, okay, I can mitigate this. We always like sales, and people don't feel like they're in a sale position when it comes to taxes right now. Why should I feel like this is a good time to pay some taxes before the rules change?
Well, the tax brackets are the lowest they've ever been. And so what that means is that right now you have more room to be able to move that money out. We talk about Roth conversions. That's converting some of that money in that IRA into a Roth where you don't have to worry about the taxes anymore. Now, when you convert that money, it's going to be considered income in the year it's converted. So if your tax brackets are already lower because of the way that the laws are written right now, then you have some more room to be able to move that money over and keep yourself in a lower tax bracket. Things could change at the end of this year. And in fact, things will change. What will happen, I don't know. I mean, you've got legislative Congress, all them doing things and talking about things.
We're kind of on a daily of I don't know,
Absolutely.
aren't we?
There's a lot of talk. But, I'd be lying if I told you I knew what would happen. But I do know what I do know, and that is right now, we are in a time period where taxes are lower, the tax brackets are lower than they have been, and we have some room to be able to move some money over now before those go up. Maybe they'll stay around longer, I don't know, but I wouldn't take a chance.
Here's what we've been told for decades, we've been told, is that you're going to be lower with your income in retirement. And tell me whether or not you're finding that with most of your clients, that, well, I don't have to worry about the taxes because it's going to be lower for me in retirement, and now suddenly something's hitting them in the face and going, what happened here?
Yeah. Well, I find that to be the case with maybe 30% of our clients if they have a certain amount of dollars, a certain amount of IRAs. But when you have people that might have a 401k with $1 million in there and some IRAs, and they've inherited some IRAs from deceased parents or uncles, that could be quite a burden. That's not going to be necessarily the situation with them. In fact, when we run our projections as to what their tax burden will be, we see some red flags on the computer screen that says you might want to start doing some Roth conversions to mitigate their tax burden. And that's what I'm talking about, paying off that partner now, and you'll never have to hear from that partner again. When you convert, dollars from forever taxed, your IRA, your 401k, into a Roth chassis, you pay that partner off then. And then as those dollars grow, they grow tax-free. When you start to withdraw, you don't hear from that partner anymore because they've already been paid off. They're on their merry way. You can get them out of your life to a certain extent, or at least
we all like to
lessen
do that?
the burden. And it's very important that if you have considerable means, or just anything that's pre-tax, you want to get in front of somebody that can look at that and forecast what your burden's going to be in the future, because it could be detrimental if you don't.
All right, let's go to another spot where we were never supposed to have the partner, and that ends up being Social Security. Wasn't supposed to be taxed. Didn't know it was going to be taxed, a lot of people are saying. Well, in '83, Ronald Reagan does, you know what, we're not going to make it on this Social Security system. So it got taxed 50%. Clinton came along in '93 and said, you know what, you got to tax a little bit more. You now can be taxed up to 85%. And when they did that back in '93, the numbers still haven't changed from that, only very slightly. And it can be a problem for you going forward.
Absolutely. The thresholds for the taxation on your Social Security have never changed. So as you can imagine, more and more people with inflation and just earnings going up are falling into those buckets. And so there's a 50% bucket where you would have 50% of your Social Security taxable. Yep. And then there's an 85% bucket. Now, sometimes there are things we can do to help with that. Sometimes there isn't. But you would be foolish not to look and see if there are options available. They use a projection called provisional income. So you take half of your Social Security, you add that to the rest of your income, and then you can check your threshold to see where you fall. But Social Security is taxable, and in some states it's taxable as well. So there are a lot of taxable situations, and look at it this way. I mean, the government's always looking to raise more money. So you brought up a point before on another episode about 401ks and the fact that there's all this money sitting in this pre-tax chassis, and they're going to go after it. And it's just a matter of them agreeing on how they should do it. That's really it.
And they very rarely agree on anything. As a matter of fact, the rules continue to change. So let's go to another one. The rules changed on when you're supposed to take your RMDs, your required minimum distributions out, from 70.5 now to 73, going to change again to 75. If you know the legislature, it will probably change again at some point. Maybe. It's trying to figure out what we know with the rules that we have right now. what's the danger in not planning for an RMD taxation as well?
Well, to go back to, let's say, somebody that has considerable assets in pre-tax accounts. You don't need, let's say that they don't need to draw the money because they have a pension or they've got enough income, saved up for a good number of years. Well, at age 73, if that's their number, they have to pull approximately 3.7 to 3.8% out. Now, if they've got $2 million, that's going to be a big burden. Significant. The government requires them to pull that out. But had they looked at 5 years before that, had they met with a planner that says, let's do a projection 5 years out from now, and slowly start converting, let's say, 50,000 here, 70,000 here, keeping them, in line with the tax bracket so that there's never a big burden. By the time that comes, their tax burden is mitigated when the government says, all that money, oh, that's not all that much anymore. Okay, well, you still have to convert it. Well, now it's manageable. That's what we're trying to do. We're trying to manage people through it. That's what a plan is about, is making sure that they are prepared for what we know. And also try to be prepared for what we don't know. What we don't know is what's going to happen in the market, right? And then that goes back to the bucket strategy. But to stay on the taxes in RMDs, there are things that you can do to mitigate how much goes to the IRS, how much goes to that partner.
It all comes as part of a plan, to put together a plan. Yeah, maybe you don't like to detox like me, but you have to detax. We all are going to face this. And if you don't know the strategies that you can use right now, maybe it's time for you to make the call to 877-241-7430. A complimentary portfolio review where, as these guys have told us all the time, we're going to x-ray your plan, get into the nitty-gritty to understand what you have, maybe what you don't understand that you have, and how we can detax you. 877-241-7430. Scan the QR code. Let's see you in the office. Get an appointment to put together a plan for your detaxification. We'll be right back.
Our team at Northern Alliance is very diverse in terms of the services that we offer.
We do take a team-based approach.
We carry multiple licenses so that clients can do everything within the Northern Alliance financial team.
If it has anything to do with retirement, that's what we specialize in.
Budget planning, tax considerations, Social Security strategies, risk management, long-term care, Medicare, health planning, as well as legal and estate planning.
We really are a one-stop shop.
There's Lance Gilman, Peter Hansen, Jeremy Barnard, myself. We do have a staff that is great.
In Maine, we have multiple locations to cover the vast array of the state.
You can come in and have a conversation in person. And a lot of people are looking for these days. Things after COVID have changed to more Zoom, phone call sort of things. And we'll do those things, but we appreciate and would rather have you come in person and have a conversation face to face like this.
We're pretty approachable, and we're going to listen to you. We're going to try to determine what your needs, your aspirations, those goals are, and then we're going to do everything that we possibly can to help you meet those goals.
It's lighthearted, it's carefree. We laugh like crazy. An atmosphere that I don't think is common in a lot of other practices.
We were talking about how well the team is bonding together, how similarly we all think in that what we do, we want to actually make a difference.
Average, everyday people helping average, everyday people.
We truly do put the client first.
Our mantra has been, when you take care of people, people take care of you.
So glad you're with us on Conquering Retirement. Brad Johansson with Peter Hansen, Derek Hewitt. Northern Alliance Financial, and we're trying to detax you. You may be in detox right now, but we need to detax, and we're going through all the plans. 401ks kind of complicate this for a lot of people. This is where we've been told to save for a long time. Many of us been doing it for more than 40 years and getting to that point of going, this is great. See, in 78, when they started to move this over, this was going to be a great plan. Pensions were working. Now we're going to do it, put it on the employee. It's going to be on your back to try and figure out how to retire. And everybody thought, okay, this is probably going to work. Hasn't quite worked like everybody hoped that it was going to work, because I guess for most of us, if we'd like to pay a tax, we'd like to pay it on the seed rather than the harvest. But our 401ks are now harvesting really well. Why do I need to pay attention to detaxing my 401ks?
Well, you're right. There's lots of books written out right now. If you go on Amazon.com or go into a bookstore in the business or finance section, there's a bunch of books. I've seen them in the last couple of months called The 401k Millionaires. There are millionaires that have all of their money or a good chunk of their money in 401ks. That money's never been taxed. All right.
So it's not all yours.
Not all yours. So right back to that, partner
Your
that you
partner.
have in the retirement. And they're kind of rubbing their hands together, saying, okay, hopefully they're going to stop pulling it out soon. If not, we're going to make them when they, hit 73 or 75. For all those years you've been contributing, taxes have never been paid. That's been growing tax deferred. Now, when you have this large balance in the 401k and you start to pull that out, that's all taxable at your ordinary income. Again, back to the plan and how do we do it? If, in fact, just real quick, if in fact you call your 401k company, ask if there might be a Roth option, and you've got a couple years left to work, you can start, deferring some of that. You pay the taxes.
And more
on
companies
that.
are doing that
More
right
and
now.
more, but it's not mandated. More of the progressive companies are doing that, but it's not mandated yet. But it's a good option. But it runs into a problem that we've been talking about. All that money that has to come out will be taxed, and there's things you can do ahead of time.
And the other thing is, we're not saying 401ks aren't good. They're great tools, but you got to use it properly. Certainly contribute what you can, try to accumulate as much as you can within the 401k. Definitely contribute enough to get the matching money, the free money, but understand that you really should start to put a plan in place before retirement on how you're going to start to move things out of that 401k. And we talked about rollovers into an IRA, but that still keeps it taxable. So, we can do that into the IRA to get it into a managed account, but then let's look at Roth conversions and converting slowly into Roths as well, because that is a good tool. And as Peter mentioned, having a Roth within the 401k is something that's becoming more prevalent these days with a lot of employers. And I really think you'd be foolish not to put something in there.
Okay, let's stay on Roth for a little bit, because this can be confusing. There are two different things. I want to contribute to my Roth, or I want to convert to a Roth. Give me some of the rules on contribution. Let's say I am in a company now, or I'd like to do this. First of all, I have to have an income to be able to do this.
That's
what
right.
are my limits to be able to contribute to a Roth at this point?
Well, if I think it's 7,000 in 2025, but that you have a catch-up.
And after 50, you get a $1,000 catch-up.
You've got a catch-up contribution after age 50, which most of our clients are. We have something in our office called the October Club. And the October Club is all of those clients that are turning 73 or are 73 and over. And the purpose behind this is to look through their dollars that they have to find out how much we're going to go and convert. What we're looking to do is, again, mitigate that tax burden for our clients. Our custodians, whether it's Charles Schwab or Fidelity, whatever custodian we're using, they send us a list. These folks are turning 73. These folks are 74. These folks are 75. So it gives us an opportunity to go through our clients. That's having a proper management style on top of your accounts to go ahead and highlight to these clients that we're going to do some Roth conversions.
So the conversion becomes part of a math strategy for you in the tax bracket that you're in right now.
Yeah, and it's also important to remember that Roth conversions are probably even more beneficial in the earlier years, because when you're getting into age 65, if you're retiring and you're on Medicare, you're going to be required to pay a Part B premium. It's $180 or $190 now. It's depending on your income. And so if you do a Roth conversion, that brings up your income for the year. So, Brad, for example, if you convert $50,000 this year, it's going to look like you made $50,000 more in income.
Yeah.
Now, 2 years from now, that will affect your Part B premium. So when you do Roth conversions up to age 62, you don't have to worry about affecting your Part B premium, and because it's about a 2-year lag, the way it works. And
Gotcha.
it will affect it for the entire year. So your Part B premium, $180, $190, could jump up to $300, $400, $500 a month. And it'll stay like that for the year. And then if your income for the next year was lower, it'll jump back down to its original
So for a
level.
lot of people going in, this is one of those mistakes of ignorance. Hold it, I didn't know that if I was going to convert this, they're looking back 2 years on my Medicare. Well, I don't do Part B or Part D right now, and now I'm going to have to do it. This is something as a preparatory strategy that we talk about detaxing. Maybe ahead of time makes the most sense.
Yeah, Brad, we have a radio show, and our radio show used to stretch down into Massachusetts, and we had a caller one time from Massachusetts. I got the caller, and she says, I hear you guys on the radio. I've heard you a couple times. Can I ask you, do you help with Roth conversions? And we said, yes, of course. He says, can you reverse mine? And I said, well, what happened? She says, well, my husband got advice from somebody, a financial professional, who suggested that we convert all of our taxable dollars into non-taxable dollars, traditional IRAs into Roth. They had a $100,000 bill. They had a lot of money. It was a significant problem. And I think it was the year after you couldn't make a change, and they were stuck with it. Yeah, meet with people that have an understanding as to what to do. Don't just listen to the radio. It wasn't our show that they got the advice from, but let somebody walk you through the process and understand, because you don't want to affect your Medicare Part B premium. You don't want to be bumped up into a higher tax bracket if possible.
There's another thing too, to kind of piggyback off of that. Financial advisor is a very loose term. Make sure that the person you're working with has the proper licensing. These days anyone can call themselves a financial advisor. At Northern Alliance Financial, we are fiduciary advisors. That's a separate license. We'd love to work with folks and see if we can put a plan in place, but regardless of who they go to for help, I would recommend going to a fiduciary. So not only an advisor, but an advisor with a fiduciary license.
What kind of advice have you been getting? Have you gotten any of this? Are you starting to hear something for the first time? You said, how come my advisor hasn't talked to me about this? Maybe it's time for a second opinion. And then you say, well, what is that going to cost me? It will cost you absolutely nothing. A complimentary portfolio review is yours, but you have to make the call. 877-241-7430. The idea is to detax, but it's not to make a mistake that compounds the mistake that you made before that. Get the advice that you need from a fiduciary independent advisor. It's what Peter and Derek have been doing for decades now. The perspective matters. 877-241-7430. Make the call. Let's make it your plan. Let's conquer your retirement right now. Be right back.
The work never seems to end until the day it finally does. After nearly a lifetime on the job, you should be rewarded for all the time you spent working. Whether that's crossing off items on your bucket list, learning a new passion, or rekindling the love of an old one. After all, life isn't over when you stop working. It's the start of an all-new chapter. The one where you're the writer and you get to choose how your story will go. A way to achieve that is by having a clear financial plan to sustain your golden years. The biggest fear most retirees have is if they'll have enough money to maintain the lifestyle they've always enjoyed. Having a plan to help protect you against the curveballs life often throws will help to maintain your lifestyle. Call today to get your free written financial plan so you may live every day to the fullest and enjoy the retirement of your dreams.
So glad you're with us on Conquering Retirement. Brad Johansson with Peter Hansen, Derek Hewitt, Northern Alliance Financial. We're trying to detax you, get the government that is a constant partner out of your pocket. You'd like to break that partnership and keep the money that you have. We've talked about it all the time, that a lot of people say, you know what, I'm looking at my stuff and this is my number. I got my number. And the unfortunate thing is your number is not your number. You don't get to keep all of that because of all of this. Derek, you talked at one point about tax harvesting for one of your clients, that it made the most sense, turning something bad into something good as you move forward. Give me an idea what that looks like.
Yeah, so there was one example that I had given before, more about the Roth conversion.
Yeah.
It was a down year.
Yeah.
A Roth conversion is considered income. This particular client moved $100,000, which is something I wouldn't recommend typically, but his business took enough losses that made sense. But also tax loss harvesting. This is a term that's used for accounts that are, after tax, taxable investment accounts. And so there are some benefits to down years, and that is because some of the funds that you're holding could experience some losses. So you can sell those at a loss, and you can harvest those and offset your gains in future years. I mean, you want to work with an advisor who knows what he's doing. You also want to have a relationship with an accountant to make sure you're doing things properly. But it makes sense. So one thing that we do at Northern Alliance Financial, when it comes to taxable accounts, we like to use exchange-traded funds. It's a chassis you can use within a taxable account to help us to be more tactical, move things around without creating unnecessary taxes, because that's an important piece as well. If we start moving things around in a taxable account, being tactical and not paying attention to taxes, then you're going to have an upset customer in an up year. They're not going to be happy. So unnecessary taxes.
Understanding this, that detaxification, as I'm going to term it, is important for everybody. And you've got people who are coming in, all of them in different situations. For a lot of people who've been out there and dealing with advisors, they're saying, well, I'm in the same thing that my friend was in because my friend led me to this, and we're all doing the same thing. They told us the plan that he has for him is the plan that should be good for me, and I'm realizing it doesn't quite work that way. Why is it so important that you guys talk about putting plans together for individuals and taking people out of situations with advisors who have them in cookie cutter plans?
Yeah, I can condone what you're talking about. I used to work for what they called a big box shop for a short period of time, where it was a large firm, and their goal was to push products. They would say, okay, guys, there's first 7 advisors that hit this level of selling these particular products. You take your spouse to Jamaica, and this was products being sold rather than products being offered to a client because it's in their best interest. Yeah. The license we have, Derek mentioned it last segment, is a fiduciary Series 65 license, which means we can only make a recommendation if, in fact, it's in the client's best interest. Now, if we're going to meet with everybody and do something in their best interest, chances are it's not the same products that the client, before or the client after who we're meeting with now is going to use. So we tailor plans based on what that client needs. Everyone has a different investor suitability, and what that is what's their risk assessment? How much can they actually afford as far as risk in the market? What is their budget requirements? What kind of debt do they have going into retirement? So every case is different. I don't think I have 2 clients, and I have hundreds of clients. I don't have 2 that are exactly the same. I guarantee you they're all completely different, and that's what a tailored plan is about, and that's what we're offering. It doesn't cost anything to come and see us to understand how that works.
And a lot of times you're seeing people who haven't figured taxes or detaxing into their plan, Derek.
Yeah, and just off of what Peter was just saying, a question I get often from someone who's coming in for an initial consultation is, how am I doing compared to other people my age?
Yeah.
And I tell them that is an impossible thing to answer because everybody's situation is different. So, for folks today, just come in, have a conversation, and let's see if we can do anything to help you plan properly and detax your retirement.
You want to detax? Now's the time. I wouldn't wait any longer. Make the call to come in for a complimentary portfolio review at 877-241-7430. Grateful for your time here. Can't wait to see you in the office. We'll see you right here next time.